Frank Raymond Ferney, aviation metalsmith chief. And lo and behold, I was at my 10-year career. 10-year career now. Now, what does that mean? While I was there on the flight line, I saw a plane fly in, another P-3. And I looked, and there was a Minuteman painted on the back of the airplane, you know, where the squadron insignia was. I said, what in the heck is that? I was active duty. I went over to that flight engineer who was doing the pre-flight, and I said, what are you? What is that? He goes, well, he says, we're reserves. He says, but I'm a TAR. I said, you're a TAR? What's a TAR? You know, he says, he says, well, we're active duty, but we train the reserves. That's what TAR stands for. We train the reserves. You know, training the reserves. He says, I get the same pay you do. He says, I retire the same time you will. He says, but I don't have to go on any 6-month deployments. We go 1 deployment a year for 30 days. I went, whoa. And I was worried. She had 2 kids now. We're back there. I said, this is great. What do I got to do to become a TAR? He says, believe it or not, come on board. I've got the whole Reslant fleet guys on there that have all the, you know, everything you need to know and to sign you up if you want to do this, you know. So I get on, and there was a commander on there sitting in the galley, you know, in Rhoda. We're talking, you know, and he says, hey, this fellow wants to be a TAR. And he goes, what is it? He said, well, he's a metalsmith. He says, we don't take, right now we're overburdened on metalsmiths. And he goes, but the guy, Rick Montrose is who it was, said, he's a flight engineer. He went, what? Because they had very few flight engineers. He said, he's also a blue card. I'm the guy that give people check rides. So he said, a blue card flight engineer, when can you start? So now what this means to me is I'm going to have to jump out of active duty and go to it's like being a reserve, but it's not. It's a TAR. You know, I'm still active duty, but I'm considered a TAR, and I don't do the things. I don't go to any active duty squadrons anymore. I go to reserve squadrons like this one. That's how I ended up here in PP-68. But while I was there, he says, okay, he says, when do you get out? I said, April, about 4 months away. He says, well, you come and see me in April before you get out. And he says, down in South Weymouth, Massachusetts, come down from Brunswick, and we'll talk. So I came down there, we talked, and he says, here's the deal, you got to get out of the Navy one day, and then come back down here the next, or stay in a hotel, and sign up the next day. I said, okay. So this is what we sat and decided we were going to do this. So what we ended up doing was we stayed in the hotel that night. Next morning I got out of the Navy, and that felt like, oh my God, what am I doing? And then the next day I went down and we signed up, and I was now a TAR. But in that, the proposition was, you know, being I was a reserve flight engineer blue card, he goes, I'm going to give you an option because you're one of the ones we need. Where do you want to go? Your choice. I said, Jacksonville, Florida, because we loved it there. So we went down there, and I went to Nauru, which is the Naval Air Reserve Unit, and I worked with VP 62 in Jacksonville, Florida. And I was with them for 4 years in 62, and I got orders again. My next orders was VP 68 in Pax River, Maryland. So we made a full circle. So we came back up here in 68, and I stayed with them until I think we moved from Pax River up to Andrews Air Force Base, I think around 85 or 85, I think it was. And I went with them, meaning I stayed here with a family, stayed here, and I drove every day. Did that until 1988 when I was ready to get out of the Navy in 20 years. In 20 years, I decided to call it quits because they offered me, I was an E7, they offered me at that time an E8 if I wanted it, if I went to Moffett Field, California, which is back to that San Francisco area again, and we looked and went, no way, we do not want to go back there anymore because the jobs were here, you know, the federal jobs. So